welcome back to part 2 of our E3 Sony PS5 reveal coverage. Let's just get to it.
So then we got to one of the highlights of the stream for me.
Boy, did we.
This was astonishing. So we've got Kena, Bridge of Spirits, with Josh and Mike Greer, who come from an animation background, who've worked with the likes of Coca-Cola, and apparently did a Zelda fan film a few years back, which went down very well. This had kind of a little bit of the Submen sort of put me in mind of kind of My Neighbor Totoro. There was a little bit of Zelda in there. Somebody mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn. This had so much charm and so much character and gameplay. Thank you, gameplay. It was one of those where I like the fellas that they interviewed. They seemed sort of quite humble and quite lovely, but the game looked astonishing. I want that on my telly. I want the pad in front of me. I want to be playing it. This was a shock at how nice it was. I'm super sold on this. Go to James first.
Well, let me tell you about Kena and the Two Strings. Sorry, Kubo Bridge of Spirits. I am an unbelievable fan of that film. If anybody listening has not seen Kubo and the Two Strings, it's not that easy to get hold of. I don't think it's available digitally. Blu-rays in the UK, not that easy to come across. Find a way to watch that film. It is just astonishing to me. I just think it's gorgeous and wonderful. And when they said Ember Lab are a small team with a background in film and animation, the bar kind of gets set pretty high then, what you expect this to look like. And it just completely trounced my expectations. It really did. Just from the little cute creatures that looked exactly like, as you say, CJ, something out of a Ghibli creation, to the magical light bowl and Kena herself, the girl, kind of picking that bow up and just the Pikmin almost style of way you interact with the creatures. The voiceover from, I just tried to search actually to find out whether it had been confirmed it was Ken Watanabe. It sounded like him, and as it goes you realise this is not a mentor figure, this is not an onlooker, this is potentially probably the antagonist talking to Kena, explaining the world, the threat that voice brings over the course of this trailer. It looked like they understood how to deliver narrative visually and through the feel and what you're seeing a character emote through their body movements in a way that all too often doesn't come across in games to me as well as it does in something the likes of, we've mentioned Spider-Verse, I've mentioned Kubo and the Two Strings, you've just mentioned a bunch of different touchstones in animation so expressive in ways that don't always come through in games because of the way games are made and because you see a character animation dozens of times in different contexts throughout the course of a game. This just had so much quality coming out of what I was seeing on the screen all the way through it. I thought this was absolutely gorgeous.
Mr. Stardust, sir.
I think James has just read my notes because that's literally everything.
What, because Laura said that they don't exist. Or are they still stuck to the ceiling after you threw
through
Ratchet and
everything in the air?
Or are they slowly floating down in your imagination?
When Beyond Good and Evil got announced too, I did actually throw my notebook across the room. I threw it. No notes were getting written for the next part of that presentation. No, I also...
And that was the last time Laura allowed you to make notes.
There's no pens, they're too sharp.
Last time I saw that game as well.
So yeah, Pikmin, I got the Pikmin thing straight away. Like I clicked that, like, ooh, I like the look of that. Again, animation, beautiful, gorgeous, like nuance to it. It had weight, like emotive, expressive. Like the pretty particle effect when she hit the ball at the end and all the grass kind of poofed into vision. The shout. The one I got, the touchdown I got, It reminded me a bit, maybe the audio more than the visuals. I kind of felt like Avatar: The Last Airbender a bit. Had that kind of sort of like feeling to it, not necessarily.
There's an ethereal charm to it, isn't there?
There was that sort of something otherness to it that kind of felt like I could see that. I could see that sort of style of motion in this game. I could see that happening. Like it's beautiful. I want to see more of it. Like it's very nice.
I think as well, if you're doing the likes of animation work for Coca-Cola and you're working in advertising, that literally you've got to make every frame count. It's got to be expressive. It's got to have character. It's got to have the right angle. You're working very, very specifically for high-level companies, and every single look at the little sort of tiny Soot Lake people or Kenna herself or the world seemed to have a very finessed eye to it and was bursting with character. Literally everything was. Even if it was a shot that was just there and then they cut to something else. And that completely endeared me to it, because part of me was just going like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and has led me to go back and watch this and still go, oh my God. And you've got to, and if you then amplify that by how the joy of discovery would be in the game, as you see a new feature, as you find a new level, if there's a new way of fighting or something that you can't get beyond, or all of those things, if they're applying that same kind of bladed scalpel-like finesse and to things, that to me is super enticing.
A new ability or new weapon isn't just functional for what it's going to allow you to do to get through the game. It's not just, I can go over that bridge I couldn't before, I can do this thing I couldn't before. It's a whole new set of animations and a new visual language for the game to express itself, and that's just it's incredibly satisfying. If they can pull all that off, and this trailer, who knows if the game ends up fulfilling on the very lofty expectations it's given me for this, but it looked astonishing to me. Also console exclusive.
Probably.
Will be coming to, can't remember if this one's, a couple of them were Epic exclusives as well, but so this one not completely exclusive to PlayStation, but is a console exclusive.
Goodbye Volcano High, which seemed to be Dinosaur People meets Life is Strange.
I wrote Animal Oxenfree.
Looks interesting, looks a little bit different. It's co-op that seems to be emerging with quite a lot at the moment.
That's the studio name, it's not a co-op.
I just had a moment there. Like,
just to be clear,
KO_OP or Coop, depending on what you're saying. But
who I'd never heard of up until 4 hours before this show, when I watched the Wholesome Direct. I was like, oh, okay, I've heard of them.
I believe that Kate Gray is working for them and has been for a few years.
Yes, she's been writing on this game.
Oh, it's this one that she's been working on, is it? Oh, got you.
I believe
can
so.
See that.
Yeah, I've certainly heard someone who's Joshua Garrity actually mentioned that this was one that Kate Gray had been working on. So I really liked the look of this. Looks like it might be visual novel-ish about teenagers leaving high school and finding their way into the world. I also heard someone mention after the fact that this might be a non-binary protagonist.
That is the thing.
Pick up in from the game, but it's certainly something I've heard, which is really cool. In the same way as Oxenfree, which is a game I really like, the level of angst and how serious the game treats that may rub some people the wrong way. Like, it can get a little bit overblown with melodrama and that kind of thing, and some people don't take to that. Personally, Oxenfree, I never saw that myself. I really enjoyed a game that was heavily narrative about teenagers dealing with being teenagers and being in that transition period between who they used to be and who they're going to be.
I like the
also,
dinosaur motif over that. They're literally like it is the end of the world,
sure.
like coming towards the every day potentially is the end of the world, but coming to the end of school and life relationships. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. The end of an era is literally like we would think of that in high school drama. End of an era, moving on to new pastures, etc. They put it right there in the logo. Asteroids coming through the goodbye volcano high. It's like, oh yeah, okay, end of an era, as in it's not just end of high school. Is it? It may be the end of the dinosaur's existence. Extinction event type thing. So yeah, this looked really interesting to me. I other than potentially visual novel, and as you mentioned, touchstones that we have from maybe Life is Strange, I don't know exactly what kind of game this is going to be to play. It looks very sort of character and story based, but really striking, I thought. Another one that's a console exclusive.
Uncle P?
Didn't do a lot for us. This one, me and Laura just sort of sat there and shrugged at it. Where's the game in it? There's no. I didn't know if they were just showing like cutscenes or like between bits, but there didn't appear to be stuff happening. Which to me, I think you're right, James. I think it's going to be the visual novel or like your Life is Strange, like your Walking Dead type. Walk around Telltale style, talk to people, stuff happens, people remember stuff. It didn't do a lot for us visually. It didn't look. I'm not a fan of the art style, I must say. Didn't think it looked very well animated or drawn. But yeah, I'm sure it's going to say some stuff. I'm sure it's going to have an interesting story behind it, but not a fan of the visuals. And because that's all we really got to see, that's all I can really say.
Well, and in a visual novel, visuals are a big part of that. If you don't like the art style, you're kind of stuck with that art style for the that's the draw to the game as much as the story.
Yeah, no, this was a bit of a non-starter in Shay Smith, unfortunately.
Extinct.
Oh.
CJ, this presumably struck some chords with you, I would imagine.
It didn't actually.
Really? Wow.
Life
okay,
is
I would have
Strange.
thought that.
I tried to play a couple of times and didn't get into it.
Yeah. I didn't either.
I can acknowledge the themes and think that this will be for a lot of people, especially if you were, you're saying about the non-binary lead characters and stuff. But I don't know. It's not in the same regard, but seeing today Boyfriend Dungeon, which just looked like amazing. That to me is more kind of my speed if we're talking about kind of interpersonal relationships and sort of slight quirks and weirdness. I know, completely different kind of game, but if we're doing similar, I don't know, there's like similar motifs, but like
absolutely.
A little sort of twist of lime on it. That to me made me go, ooh, this one, I don't know. I like Kate. I think she's incredibly talented. I'll watch to see how it goes. I've seen a mixture of people going like one of the things that I saw about the presentation was somebody said there's lots of games for me and there's others that look like BoJack Horseman.
Oh my god, that's what it was. It was annoying me that it looked like something, and that's what it was.
So that was Jess from Twitch said that, and I nearly spat out my coffee.
That's amazing.
But on the other side of this, I can see this being a very personal tale to a lot of people, and I think the art style and the simplicity and the colours of that, it may well draw people in because of the way that they can perhaps find it accessible or imprint themselves upon it, in a maybe not dissimilar way to things like Night in the Woods or that sort of stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the nature of a game that goes for quirkiness, isn't it? It's going to be some people's quirks.
But I've been playing Wonder Song a lot, and that has the most simplistic, accessible visuals you could ever think. And that game is just heartfelt and glorious and colourful and weird. And I'll keep an eye on this. but mainly because
Yeah.
I think Kate is super talented, and I'd like it to be good.
I'll be grumpy grandpa in the corner going, bloody furries.
There we go. You've still not beat Jess's comment, because
It's
Jess's
really
comment
good.
was genius.
It's really good.
Yeah. So we then bounce to Oddworld Soulstorm, and I'm going to go to our PlayStation boy first.
That's you, right? No, it's Lorne Lanning, everybody! Yay! Christ, I'm up for this. Christ, I'm excited for this. I have a weird history with Oddworld, because like, I loved the first two games, but I never played Munch's Odyssey, because it was Xbox original.
Oh god, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, exclusive, and it never came out on my machine. And Stranger's Wrath took ages to come out on anything that I own. I think I've since got them from like bundles somewhere on the PC. I think they all exist somewhere I can get on them now, but I've just kind of never got to them. Played the Christ out of New and Tasty, the PS4 remaster of the first one, which was I know our friend Ellie, who worked for these guys for a bit, was bouncing off the walls about Soulstorm for ages, and yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want. It's an Abe game. It's a proper side-scrolly Abe game.
All of those environments, I understand, are destructible. So wood will set on fire. Like if you batter something, it will break. It looked chaotic.
Here's the important thing: when a Mudokan jumps near something that will kill it, they don't just splat; they burst into 100 chunks of meat. Yes, please.
Apparently, it's been played, or a chunk of it has been played in the past, and they were saying like some sections are absolute chaos, some are more stealth sections, and often one can follow the other. The train stuff looked absolutely insane.
Abe's Odyssey by way of Mad Max.
Put that in the box.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah, me and Laura were both really impressed
Clip
by
it
like,
and
the
ship
train
it,
stuff.
as they say
Hell
on
yeah.
Twitch.
The bit that got me at the end is the bit where they're talking about, you got to find your real voice. And he's cutting the straps off. Like, oh, my boy! Yeah. I'm so proud of you! It's only taken 25 years, but I'm so proud of you! Please! You have a dedicated fart button, and I'm so proud of you.
James?
I don't really have any history with the Oddworld series, and I can't remember which one it was. Some version of it must have been Abe's Odyssey that I picked up on PlayStation Plus or somewhere like that, and I saw a lot of that in this, the kind of puzzle platformer aspect of leading a group of slaves to freedom. There was a little bit of that kind of thing in Inside by Playdead, where you had to gather up drones and kind of lead them through puzzles to get a certain number of them. That was exactly the right amount of that sort of thing I wanted. I very quickly tired of the version of Abe's Odyssey that I played, unfortunately. And looking at this, it looks stunning. The music that was over the top of it, I thought, was incredible. It just got this tension and sort of ramped up the urgency of what was going on, and really got the tone. But all the clips where I saw player leading a line of 5 slaves towards a puzzle that clearly needs to be traversed, I was just like, no, not. I don't have the history. I don't have the feel for that gameplay, and I don't really have the desire to get into it, I'm afraid.
To be fair, that is most of the game. Like, I mean, I was always really bad at that bit. I'd always save a few, and then you get to the end of the factory, and it's like, if you go now, the 63 that are still in there are all going to die, and you're like, I'm cool with that. And you leave the door, and then the death counter just kind of goes, boink! Like, oh no. Whoops. So yeah, I kind of never used to bother with that too much by the end. For me, it's more about just getting through the levels as well as you could, and I was never going to save everyone because I wasn't good at it. But yeah, like if the saving aspect isn't for you, then I think this is probably not going to do much to curry your favour, outside of being maybe a spectacle to look at, because it looks like they're going all in.
I think part of the problem... Yeah, definitely. Part of the problem for me as well is I'd feel like I'd failed if I didn't save everyone, and I imagine for some of the rooms that's not the point.
All right, perfect stealth boy.
Well, yeah, there is an aspect of that where it's like Lemmings. I will replay those levels over and over and over and over and over again to try and save the absolute maximum. You have to let some go because you've got stop lemmings and
explode lemmings.
You need to blow some lemmings, etc. That happens, but that's a game where it's clearly a puzzle game. So you iterate and you play the levels over again to get it as best as you possibly can. You try different strategies and tactics, whereas. Yeah,
once you've done the puzzle, you've done the. I can see how that would annoy your brain because you wouldn't be able to just rewind and go. Let me try that one again.
It's like the story should be pushing me forward, and yet my brain says no. Go back and redo that room. So just a bit weird. Got to say though, between the visuals and the music, and then find your voice, and you see him going to cut the. That's powerful, even for someone with no history with this series. That's a powerful visual and emotional moment. Even with absolutely. Oh, that was really incredible.
CJ, here's the baton.
When I saw this, I was happy to see it in the presentation because again, it tied back to PlayStation getting back to like PlayStation 1, like bonkersness and wondrousness. I actually thought of you because I and that connection, and I'd hoped you'd been sort of pretty jazzed at seeing this. My friend Ellie's like a huge fan of this series as well. For me, I have no connection with it. Watching what was on screen was really kind of living vicariously through how I presumed Pad and Ellie would react to it. But I agree with James that the ending bit was super powerful for me. Like that was like a punch in my chest where I kind of went, oh.
For sure.
But yeah, that's where I am with it.
Very fair.
Also a console exclusive.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. No, it makes sense for
God,
what
it's bounced from pillar to post, doesn't it? It's been all over the place.
It has, but it's home initially, or where you associate it with most. Certainly you would, but certainly where I do as well is PlayStation. So it makes sense.
So Ghostwire Tokyo, with Shinji Mikami now in charge, clearly. First,
has he officially taken over as creative director?
I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I presume with the other last leaving,
Ikumi Nakamura.
So first person, kind of Naruto type. I don't know the word for it, but this sort of clap finger hand movements. Sort of a bit of a.
It's really good.
Thanks.
I'll
tie that back to when we were talking about Goodbye Volcano High, and one of you two went, and I can see why it's called Goodbye Volcano High, and I was focusing on Dinosaur Peeps' Life is Strange, and I was like, they should call it Goodbye Volcano. So it had like a bit of a Silent Hill Persona vibe, but when I was listening to 8-4 Play, they kind of went, doesn't look very good, does it? And they were kind of mentioning that Japan has never really gotten first-person stuff particularly right. It looks interesting. It looks quirky. There was a lot of, this enemy is a salaryman. This enemy is a schoolgirl. This enemy is a salaryman as well. Oh, it's another salaryman. It's a schoolgirl.
But she's got no head.
Ooh. So I can see the potential for it, but I didn't think it made the best first showing, especially with Mikami talking up at the start with his snowy beard and jet black hair.
I agree. Me and Laura kind of looked at it, and when things were kicking off, and you got that sort of digital hack ghost stuff going on at the end, like, well, that's colourful and that's cool looking, but the actual gameplay, so he's got a gun that's his hand, pew 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 pew, with his Naruto finger movements. But I saw his finger guns, but I totally agree. Hey, gee, it's in. I don't know. Just it didn't look very fluid, and I think for that sort of style, you want to be whizzing around doing cool stuff, and I think there's a better version of this coming up later that we'll talk about. But it visually looked cool, but the actual gameplay didn't look much to be desired. I mean, for me, it had the same. Here you go. The same resonance as a game called Killer is Dead that I got for review that I thought looked cool as hell, and I played it and I hated every second.
And I loved it.
Oh, I hated that game. It was just designed for me to go, I don't like playing this. Everything is bad. The characters are all horrible. I don't like any of them. Oh, it should have been for me visually, and then everything else just didn't happen. And I think maybe there's hints of this in that. Like, it doesn't look like something I want to play.
I think for me there was a strange disconnect between the way that it was talked about on that Bethesda stage, with like, oh, spooky, and like
spooky.
they had kind of all of the almost like an extension or a twist of lime on the Evil Within stuff, and like they had that kind of continuity. And what I saw here didn't feel anything like that. And the thing that I thought when I was looking at the visual style was almost like, it's not really that far from Super Hot. It's just I don't know. It just looked off, and wasn't really a great selling point for a next gen machine. I don't know if this is going to be like cross generational, but.
I would say the backgrounds looked okay. Like when the ghost hack stuff was happening, I thought the characters did not. I was quite impressed by the whole. There was one particular one, like a small room where like the wall is kind of digital ghost going all over the place, and we were like, oh, that's pretty. But the animations and the actual characters just didn't look. That same schoolgirl 3 times, like you say, CJ, it's the same enemies. If you can't even get 6 discrete enemies for your trailer.
Yeah, I mean, there may well be like a continuity and a fluidity when you've got the pad in your hand, and I'd be interested if if there's anything tied into that kind of haptic feedback of the new controller that will kind of accentuate that, or the spookiness, or nobody's got their hands on that controller yet anyway. No. But that is a curiosity in thinking out of the box. Like, say, that fluidity of actually controlling it. It might be speedy. It might depends how they do the challenges. It depends on the story, all that kind of stuff. But I was left wanting by this first glimpse.
Yeah, I think what we saw a year ago on Bethesda stage from Ikumi Nakamura, and trying to leave aside her enthusiasm, her joy at being able to be on that stage and present this cool game that she was clearly really invested in. That set a tone, and it set expectations for a game that was spooky. It was a different style of horror from your Resident Evil style of horror, your Silent Hill style of horror. It's more ghostly than that, and more like perception bending. And some of the imagery here, I think, got that across. But yeah, when you then have the headless schoolgirl as a repeating enemy, and you have kind of like PS3 gen first-person hands that feel a little disembodied. They don't really feel like they are you behind the camera. They feel like they are the hand. Like, you know what I mean, when they don't quite
Bioshock fingers.
How hands should behave. Yeah, just like there's something about them that's those hands are just because I'm not using a gun, so you've just put hands in place of gun rather than it actually feeling like something.
Well, James, when all you've got is a first-person perspective, everything's a gun, isn't it? So,
I'll tell you what bounced to mind when I was watching this, because not a lot of it really seemed cohesive and super hung together. A lot of me put 2 and 2 together and just went, has this been refitted from something that it once was? And is that the reason that Nakamura left, because her vision was not being adhered to anymore, and it'd been sort of taken out of her hands somewhat? The mind instantly bounces to that.
Yeah. And the problem is, with a lack of information, which often happens when people leave companies, particularly in Japan, because it's not the done thing to speak out and to badmouth. And that's not an exclusively Japanese or Eastern thing. That happens all over the world. It just tends to happen more. You think of Kojima leaving. We still don't really know what happened there. So where there's a void, people kind of fill in information. And so, it's easy to kind of start wondering, is it because of how we perceive this game looking now and not being what we hoped it would be? Is that why she left, because it wasn't coming out how she thought it was going to be. And who knows? And I've seen people respond very positively to this particular gameplay demonstration. Some people who were really as enthused as we were when we talked about Ghostwire Tokyo last year about the possibility. Some people are seeing that being fulfilled here. I wasn't particularly. I think partly because Resident Evil 7, by all accounts, proved that you take something that's inherently third-person horror and move it into first-person, and what you can do is close and oppress upon the person because of their first-person viewpoint. You can bring that horror closer to home. You can literally immerse someone more. And what this looked an awful lot, unfortunately, like was, well, yes, that's true, but when it's an enemy moving towards you slowly and you're firing fireballs at it, that's tough to make that a horror-type thing. I don't know why. It shouldn't necessarily be, but when it's just hands flapping and throwing fireballs, it just feels a bit like we're going back to Doom era of shooter, and that worked for Doom then, but it doesn't necessarily work now. I guess Hexen would be a better touchstone there for this, because it's hands throwing spells. It just, something about it felt like they didn't quite get what needed to happen to make first person scary. And I haven't got my hands on the game. I don't know. It may play much better. It may be that this game, by the time it comes out, 2021 is the date they put on it, so it's not going to be this year. They've got plenty of time. But yeah, I wasn't really feeling it, despite the fact that the imagery they were showing here, I thought, still fulfilled the promise of what they'd laid out to a greater or lesser degree. It's just, as you say, when you're seeing repeating enemies over again, it kind of takes you out of that that kind of creepy, what's this creature coming towards me? A, what is it? B, what's it going to do to me? Well, when it happens every 5 minutes, that necessarily lessens the mystery of that, because you kind of cease to care when you're just throwing fireballs at it. Unfortunately.
So we then had Jet the Far Shore, which is Super Brothers, who did Sword and Sorcery many years ago.
Sincere apologies. I've just noticed Ghostwire Tokyo is a timed exclusive PlayStation 5.
Okay.
That's worth saying, simply because there's a couple of games in this that are third party, that, you know, this is coming from Tango Gameworks. We just assumed, because it was never said when it was announced, that they were going to be coming to everything, and this one for PlayStation 5 is a timed exclusive.
Okay,
right,
thank you.
Apologies. Sorry for interrupting there. Please, Paddy, feel free to cut that out if it's not worth saying. I just noticed I'd made that note there.
No, we don't edit out. If you show your ass, you show your whole ass.
I just have to be rude.
So, Jet the Far Shore, Super Brothers, who did Sword and Sorcery, which I never played. Apparently, 8-4Play are doing the Japanese translation of this, and they say, obviously, they know more about it, but aren't saying anything. And it was an intriguing little demonstration without really getting a measure of what it was, which might have been a bit of a misfire, really, because the intrigue was there. It kind of looked a little bit No Man's Sky meets Virus, if you remember that, on the Acorn Archimedes and the Amiga. It's, I don't know, looks interesting. I'll keep an eye out for it, but I don't think they made the best of their time on a showcase like this.
I think I partially agree with you. I think they could have explained a bit more about what the game is, because all that seemed to be shown was fly a small ship around a bit, which is fine. That looked very nice. I like the weird vignette they had around the whole thing as well. Made it look like you're looking down at something happening on a planet's surface. Maybe you're in the thing and you're looking down, possibly. I don't know. Super Brothers made Sword and Sorcery, which was just weird, and it was good. I still don't know quite what it was about, but it was good. Like, it was just one of those things you have to play and just sit back and think, that was weird. Good music. It was an experience. Try and, if you can, CJ, I think you'd enjoy it. It's odd. The thing we got, obviously you got the space colonization, Earth dying, I guess, trying to find the new home stuff. Me and Laura just looked at each other and pretty much at the same, like, Interstellar. Yeah, it's that sort of going so far to find a new place to live, and you're out in these wild lands that, you know, are just, you know, huge oceans to cross in your little spaceships. a fragment of some 2001-ish feel in there as well. You know, this whole thing of like escaping and going to find the other. But again, it's all kind of spitballing based off of a trailer that didn't have a tremendous amount in it. But I mean, for something like this, I suppose from the Super Brothers guys is that I suppose the mystery is going to be the interesting part. You know, because again, I didn't know what Sword and Sorcery was going in, and frankly, I don't know what Sword and Sorcery was coming out of it. But I think if they keep it mysterious and just kind of drip feed stuff, I think it's going to serve them better than showing off colony simulations. You know, I think this was more of a tone setter than a
marker laid down.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, me and Laura both got that sort of Interstellar vibe off of it, particularly like the ocean planet bit from that 100%. We're like, ooh, remember that bit? Yeah. So yeah, that's what we came with. But I cautiously optimistic. I don't know. It looks weird.
Interstellar. To be honest, I'll drink any lager.
Can't stand you.
If you've got it in the fridge, I'll drink it. But to be honest, a can of Kestrel and I'm just parched.
Ever since we started streaming, it's gotten awfully aggressive, isn't it? Just constantly like...
What? Like, I didn't hear you chuckling every time I mentioned nobody's gotten their hands on that pad earlier. And you every time.
It's like, I've got to get my hands on it. I can't. Yeah. Social distancing, man. You're not allowed. James, please save us from this argument.
Yeah, I thought this looked really interesting. Obviously, sepia-toned colour scheme, not something you see very often. Super Brothers definitely noticed that and thought that was interesting. Not working with Jim Guthrie. Oh, dear me. Jim Guthrie on the soundtrack. This is now, I presume it's pronounced Scientific, SCNTFC.
I don't know that.
Doing the songs. And yeah, it kind of set up, okay, here's the premise for where you start in the game, which is Earth is coming to an end. People need to head for the stars to survive. That the tagline was, carve out a future for people haunted by oblivion, propelled by dreams. So there you go. I'm not sure if you're looking for somewhere to settle down. Flying spaceships across the surface of every planet in the universe is the expedient way of sorting that out. I'd like to think you'd maybe not go so far as actually going down onto planet surface, but clearly there is some reason for doing that, and that looked really spectacular in a kind of No Man's Sky, Interstellar absolutely kind of way, with the kind of synthesized music over the top, the real kind of like chill but ominous tones going on in the background. It just looked really cool. And the notion of starting civilization over from year zero because you are going to begin something anew, these are all themes that seem really interesting. Need to see what the game is. It's coming holiday 2020. This is going to be close to launch for these consoles. This one is a PS5 console exclusive. Whether that means it's at launch or sometime around, either way, this could carve out a really nice niche where that launch window where you get more attention because there aren't so many games. Yours is coming out and people want something interesting and visually impressive to play on the new console, and this certainly is striking in terms of its theme and visuals and music. So, interested to see more. Definitely, I think interested.
I'll be round if you make it back. So then we had Godfall, which is being published through Gearbox. Looks like yeah, exactly. That
Gear sucks more like
Frisky Pitchfork. And his magic flash drive.
I wasn't ready for that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So it looks kind of like a Dark Souls stroke Devil May Cry looter, and
looter slasher, I believe they called it back when it was revealed at
I didn't like
Game
the
Awards,
first look of it when everybody was going like, oh my god, Godfall, the first PS5 game. I was like, didn't look at that good. I liked all of the colours in what was shown. Gameplay looked very Souls-ish. And one of the best comments I've seen on it was that this presentation seemed to be at two odds, and one of them was kind of the hulking, slashing heaviness of it, and the other one was like, huh, yeah, come on, yeah, come on, yeah, like big sort of.
Yeah, that song does not fit the Future Gods aesthetic of this game. Don't get me wrong, enjoy the song. Actually, kind of think they maybe made it work with this trailer, but that's like, is that the soundtrack to this game? Is that what we're to expect playing it?
That's the other side of kind of when you get the likes of say an Assassin's Creed game, and they will take a great 80s song and funnel it through the speaker of a wispy indie person and make it sound last for about a week. The thing that kind of made me raise an eyebrow at this was kind of it said the people behind it, Counterplay Games, is a 75-person studio in California with several developers that have worked on other looter shooters such as Destiny 2. So that made me go, oh. Apparently they worked on a game called Duelist, which I've not heard of before. Apparently the game's world is inspired by the Stormlight Archive, the First Law, the Foundation series by Asimov, and gameplay from the Monster Hunter series inspired the variety of weapons and combo mechanics. So that little paragraph there did more for me than the actual trailer did. But yeah, I open it up.
Which is a problem when you're trying to sell your game and you miss the mark on someone like you who would have been interested in all of the touchstones, but then the trailer doesn't reflect any of that sufficiently well.
Yeah, this trailer sent my hype through the floor. I don't know what. Like, you look at it, and it's like it feels like it wants to be 6 different things at once, but doesn't quite know what it is. Like, the hints I got, God of War combat is what I saw it as, like that very sort of shield and chop and move and chop, but by way of possibly a bit of Destiny visuals in it as well, with the big extravagant armor. And again, I think this is much like that car game from earlier. This game's gonna have some DLC, yo! Oh, it's gonna have character armor pack DLC. Oh, it's gonna have some sort of weapon DLC. You know it's gonna have skins. Like, it's off. I don't know. It did nothing. It looks a little bit like comedy gold for honor. It looks like in Power Rangers, sorry, Super Sentai, CJ, the gold villain from the first American show, Goldar, just a big gold lion. Like, they all looked like that, and it did nothing for me. And then the fact that you got Gearbox written next to it as well is an immediate, point in the fart column.
If you're talking about kind of an off-putting thing that came to me when I was watching that was, and this kind of came down to the armor designs and a lot of the animation, was Lords of the Fallen.
I have written here, looks like Future Gods, Lords of the Fallen, and that unfortunately for me just means they have got a fight on their hands to get me remotely interested in this.
But people are hyped, as my friend would say.
I think that music, like you say, it doesn't. For me, the tone that music set was like, "Yo, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a party, yeah!" And like, fine, that's cool.
I'm not coming to your house.
Yeah,
we're gonna have sandwiches in triangles and crisps in bowls.
We're gonna have a party, yo! RSVP.
Well, here's the thing, right?
Everybody come round. We're gonna scream. We've got different flavors of ice cream and flakes, yo. Come round to Paddy's.
Let's put on now 73. But yeah, it kind of like that kind of trailer style like sells like the idea this is going to be a fun knockabout sort of game, not like your Fortnites maybe. Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of like let's go have some fun, whoa. Whereas I think the initial trailers we saw were like, oh, that looks like big, and like you expect to hear sort of like the blah, sort of like powerful, I don't want to say it, but Dark Soulsy kind of music over the top, like, oh, it's going to be big and expansive, and no, it's going to be lol. It's Saints Row, and I like Saints Row, but you know what I mean? It's got that kind of like, this game's going to have DLC, baby.
I could kind of,
and that's
could kind of see it as being like doing one of those intros where it's just like, The Dark Lords are taking over our town, Epsilon. We will never give up to them. And then go like, boom, and then going, dun, 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 just doing like some like Skrillex stuff over the top as it goes into that combat. But definitely having like a few people talking at the start with like a build up and then the
Yo, Blade Master Hagglemark, drop that beat.
I'd play that game. I'd play that version.
I think we've accidentally fixed it.
Yeah, you could do like a version of the hunting horn, but somebody's got some mixing decks in the corner. Where hast thou gotten those from? I hast been to Curry's. I had a coupon.
Prepare to battle.
Yeah, it's just weird. I don't know if this is so. What struck me when we were just talking there about how they advertise this game versus how they talk about this game is. Are Gearbox the right people to?
No.
Look,
that's it. They've advertised
I don't like
it like
Randy Pitchford. I use
that's
that.
What they've done
Exactly.
Yeah.
They advertised it like Borderlands, which is Borderlands never advertised itself on what 100%. That game actually is to play. Like, yes, billions of guns, but actually it's the humor, which some people really dislike. I get that. It's the humor, it's the style, it's the fun of shooting, and that's not like they don't advertise what it's actually like to play that game. They advertise what it's like to watch a trailer of that game. They advertise that game by making trailers that are fun and get people excited about something that's not really necessarily what moment to moment's going to be like playing that game, and it's bombast and it's over the top, and then you go elsewhere to find out what the game actually is.
With Frisky the Magician in the background, what's your bonuses?
So I don't know. My fear is it's Future Gods, Lord of the Fallen. From what you've just said, CJ, about what they're saying they want the game to be, my other concern would be it's great to aim for Destiny. Bungie is a huge team and still, to some degree, struggles to keep up with the expectations of all of their players. A 75-person team sounds huge for a new game that's just coming out. It sounds really small for something of remotely the scope of a Destiny, where you need constant content to be coming to that game to keep people engaged and to keep people going back and going after the loot and the missions, etc. That concerns me, and it's great Gearbox are putting their support and their money, ill-gotten or not, behind other developers, and it's really cool to see something like this that is different. We don't see looters, slashers, well that feels dirty just saying it, but we don't see that sort of thing attempted. This is a spin onto something else, and the way they advertised it didn't really get across. I didn't once think Isaac Asimov when I watched that trailer at all. It was the furthest thing from my mind, I might suggest.
So we then went to Solar Ash by the Hyperlight Drifter developers, which looked...
Heart Machine. Heart Machine.
Which I've not played Hyperlight Drifter, but this looked really lovely, and the character designs and colours were really nice. Gave a bit of an idea what it'd be like to monkey about in that world without showing too much. I
fully agree. I think the art looked gorgeous. Reminded Laura actually reminded her of Bound from the PS4, the ballerina platformery thing.
Okay, yeah.
Which
for sure.
Just before had a VR patch. Oh, it's really good. Oh, it's pretty. So yeah, that's the kind of thing we got. The magic skates look fun. The cloak, you know me. I love a cape. I love a coat. Like the coat looked gorgeous. And I think the ending bit of this trailer where she sort of skated along and the camera shifted around. This game's gonna have gravity puzzles, yo. Like, you're going to be jumping off the ceilings and walls all over the place, and I'm fine with that. This looks weird and interesting, and I'm for it. I'm here for it.
James?
Yeah, definitely. So the palette very much comes from Hyperlight Drifter in this, but when I see a palette like this, and actually when I saw this game move, my first thought was Journey, but with that palette, my mind went straight to Fury, and not because of the way that game plays, because that's a very specific game that nothing really plays like it. but the devs of Fury, game bakers, are making a game called Haven, which is kind of a free-flowing, moving... which this reminded me of, and not in that kind of, these look eerily similar, just like there's stuff going on in both of these that just draws me to the game. Annapurna publishing this, it looks like something that just captures imagination in a really cool way and spins out of Hyperlight Drifter in a way that if they told me it was a spiritual successor, or if they told me it was in the same universe, I could see it. If they tell me it's something completely separate and it's just the palette that they like to use, that's cool as well, because this did a really good job of just like, here's a character, putting them in a situation that immediately makes you concerned for them, obviously having them sort of knocked to the ground and then getting up and moving in a way that just looked smooth and flowing, and like Journey, as I say, came to mind. It just, and also Hyperlight Drifter doesn't have dialogue or VO, and straight in this trailer, here's a character talking to the protagonist. Yes, let's see what they do, expanding the verbs and the mechanics in their games. Absolutely. Looked really cool. 2021 for this, and is a console exclusive to PlayStation 5 as well. Looked really cool.
Hitman 3, James, you buying it?
I've as soon as this came up, it was just like Hitman.
I just wrote James on my notes.
Yeah, I've got no stake in the game on this one, so I like the reflection in the mask, and the climbing of the buildings put me in mind of Just Cause and Crackdown, but I've got no other touchstone for this.
But also infiltrating one of the skyscrapers in Dubai is full on. Are we going Mission Impossible here?
Yeah, I can see that.
Are we going to jump a car between two buildings here? Because that would be a nice nod to Fast and the Furious. There's so many touchstones for that setting that taking Hitman and Agent 47's just scope for mechanics and for weird stuff happening in the world. Some of it planned by developers, some of it not. Hello, Flying Briefcase. There's so much scope for what they have set up. Like, I'm a long-term Hitman fan, but I have to accept that I saw from Hitman 2, the original Hitman 2, Silent Assassin, the potential for this game, and then at periods like with Blood Money, they realised potential that was there in Hitman 2 Silent Assassin, but they couldn't do it because they just hadn't refined their systems enough. And since 2016's soft reboot is still technically in the same world, and they've not changed much about the character, etc. They've just they wanted, as it turns out now, a trilogy to really say, here are 3 games, if you've not played the rest, don't worry about it. We're going to introduce systems that allow us to highlight the ways in which you can play the game. So if you don't want to turn off all the aids and just fail until you find out a path to killing people, which is what Hitman games kind of were, it was a lot of negative feedback. They wanted to provide the breadcrumb trail through the level to allow people to see something really cool you can do in the specific level they've set up. I'm just all in for this. Hitman 2 that came out in 2018, I get that people felt like it was a 1.5 because it was a lot of the same systems, but they added stuff to that, and they went back, they pulled from their deep history for this franchise now, and took ideas that they'd done previously and brought them forward and changed them and twisted them and reconfigured them in ways that was just mind-blowing to me. And I get that that's a very specific reaction I would have, that not many would. Hitman 2 apparently didn't do that well. It's clearly done well enough for the studio that they're putting out another one. Notably, it didn't show who the publisher was for this, because IO own Hitman and they had a publishing deal with Warner for the last game, but before that had been part of Square Enix. So I don't know whether Warner are going to publish this. I don't know whether they're self-publishing. I don't know. But January, barely more than 2 years after Hitman 2 came out, we're probably going to be in the same situation again where the game doesn't change that much. And they're absolutely doubling down on this is the World of Assassination trilogy, expect it to follow the path of the last ones, but their level design, the way they allowed players to express and explore the mechanics of the game that they put together in weird and wonderful and darkly funny and disturbing ways. Give me more of that. If you want to call it a level pack or 1.5 or whatever, fine, fill your boots, but do not underestimate the ability that IO have to create levels that just continue to knock my socks off 20 years into a series. Can't wait for this.
Cool.
Was that about what you were after?
That's perfect. I've got no more to add.
Sorry.
What you guys said about living through
monologue.
or to see through my eyes, that's what I just did with you.
Yeah, likewise. I'll move on. So we've got Astro's Playroom.
Whoa.
What?
You've missed something. They just casually drop what the system menu looks like between these two.
Yeah, that's not a game, mate.
Just casually drop. Oh, it's all black with the little fireflies in the background. Oh, it's pretty. I nearly pressed the home button on my PS4 controller. Seriously.
Sorry. Should they have been going through this and just going, right, now we've got 5 minutes of an X coming out of some white paint, and then the square really nice, falling from. Yeah, they actually gave you points to write things down.
They were such a tease for revealing the console, though. How many times can they look at a square or an X in a way that makes it look like it might be the corner of a box? And then it's not. It was such a tease. They were really cool and really well done.
Want those as themes or backgrounds or wallpapers because they were cool. Give us those, please.
I'd imagine they'd be dynamic backgrounds. They'd be missing a trick otherwise.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue with games.
I'm sorry. I just want to hit all the bases. You just jumped over one.
This is a weird one. This is. I'm interested on your guys' take on this.
Astro's Playroom. What did you think of it, Paddy?
Yes, please. Put more of it in me. Yes. I maintain that Astrobot Rescue Mission is probably the best VR game that I've got. It's the best realization of what you can do with a controller and a box on your head. It is joyful, it is wonderful, it is up there with...
He hasn't even got VR.
Just a box on my head and the cover art in front of my eyes.
Genuinely up there with some of my favourite just pure platformers. Lego Star Wars good is how I say it, because it's good. Those games play so well. They're really inventive. There's 100 different things you can do. Looking around, finding things in the level, clever things to do with the controller to kind of move your Astrobot around. It's full of character. It's full of charm. It's funny. It's nice to look at. It's not. The problem with these mascot games, they can sometimes be a bit annoying. It's not annoying. It is wholesome and delicious. And then for this to be a free thing that everybody with a PS5 is going to get, admittedly, makes me a little bit upset that this isn't going to be a big, full, proper Astrobot platformer that I can play for, 10, 15, 20 hours. But the fact that everyone's going to get to play this is brilliant, because the production values on Astrobot Rescue Mission VR through the goddamn roof. And it's a shame that more people didn't get to play it, because not a lot of people have the VR. Everyone's going to play this and just see just how fun and how nice it is to touch this game. And
do you think that will then set them up, though, for a bigger game in future, because more people will know what it's like and kind of demand more of it?
Give them a budget. Throw money at them until they make a big one of these. Please, I will buy it. I will buy it with my money. Astrobot, I said this to Laura at the time, Astrobot Rescue Mission is so good, they have earned a buy from me for whatever it is they do with this next. Whatever they're doing, I will buy it. And because this is free, unfortunately, that now has to skip over to the next game, which will be in 5 years' time. But it's just nice to see a game where they've just thrown everything in, thought of every idea, made it work, polished it up to within an inch of its life, which is, a lot of these sort of PlayStation first-party pack-in titles do tend to be polished to absolute hell. They are gorgeous to look at. Just give me more. And apparently there's 4 worlds. Every world is going to be around a different aspect of a thing you can do with the controller, apparently. So there'll be a haptic feedback world, I assume, or a touchpad world, or a microphone world, maybe. Again, that's just spitballing.
Adaptive trigger world, USB port world.
Did you see the
headphone
controller's
jack
got a
world,
USB
yeah.
port though? Can't believe it! I'm so excited. That's the reveal of the week. Yeah, I'm all up for this. This game's joy and happy and fun, and the fact that it is free and everybody can just touch it and play it and see what I see. Get in, my son. Get in, my son. CJ, what did you think?
I was a little bit disappointed when I heard that it was quite a small game, because I was looking at this in the same way as I was looking at Sackboy earlier and just thinking, like, this is pure Mario Sunshine type gorgeous 3D run around platformer, and you can give me 8 worlds and 20 levels of that, and knowing the way that everyone has spoken so warmly and so enthusiastically about Astrobot Rescue, to find out that it obviously everybody's going to play it, and like I say, it'd be great if the awareness means that they are then able to make another game or a bigger game or more DLC for that people will pay for, whichever it might be. But I was looking at this and just thinking, this looks amazing. I could lose myself forever in this, and finding out that it's 4 kind of worlds or levels is kind. I am a little bit disappointed, but like I say, if it's a pack in and people enjoy it, the opportunities for them to then grow from that are wonderful. Mr. James Carter.
Yeah. I kind of ran the gamut on emotions with this as well, because until the name came up, it was a bit like, ooh, we had a Mario 3D World alike with Sackboy's Big Adventure. Can we please have a full 3D Mario style platformer with Astrobot? Because as much as it made great use of the VR, and absolutely hands down my favourite VR experience on PlayStation VR, Tetris Effect may be up there as well, but it did loads of stuff that would work perfectly well in a non-VR game. A lot of the stuff you do with the controller and the way they interact with that and kind of flick from it and use the touchpad in a really creative way. The joy of moving around in that space. Yes, they absolutely did stuff where you had to look behind you and down and around and all over the place, and did play with it in VR, and it worked much better than I would have thought a third-person platformer would work in VR. They did do loads of stuff with that. So I started off with this thinking, it's Astrobot, I'm in, whatever it is. Like, him drying himself with the beach towel was just like, oh, my heart is going to burst. It's Japan Studio and Team Asobi back together, but kind of realising they've not hinted at all this is VR. Okay, so we're getting a full Mario style 3D platforming absolutely all in for that. Give me it, because the ideas that Team Asobi and Japan Studio brought to Astrobot as a VR game were just ideas all over the place, in the same way that Mario throws an idea out for one level and then just dispenses of it, because it doesn't need to build the whole game around that. It can just move on and do something different the next level, something different again the next level, and it's not all about find the one idea you think's best and make a whole game iterating on that. It's just be creative, and it doesn't need to be the be all and end all. You just do something cool with it. The thought of that for a whole Astrobot game as a 3D platformer, a full 10-15 hour sort of platformer, I was all in for, and I think they've got the creativity to be able to pull that off in spades. And then to see Astro's Playroom, or to realise that Playroom meant, oh no, that's very specific branding that very specifically means mini game collection style. And okay, this is all Astro, so it's not going to be mini game collection. It's going to be, here's 4 different worlds exploring something different you can do. It's still really cool, but it did feel like something had been pulled away from me instead of something really cool being offered to me in a weird way. Other than the fact it said Playroom, forgive me if I'm wrong, there was no indication that was the case from that trailer they showed. If you didn't know that Playroom meant small experience, probably packed in to show off the controller or some technical aspect of the thing, they didn't really say anything about that. So that was an inference that you can make if you know it, but wasn't apparent to anyone else, I don't think. again, if you're going to put something like this that looks as charming as this does in the console, or have it as a PlayStation Plus game month one, however they're going to do it, I presume console packing.
I think it's preloaded.
Shout about that. Absolutely shout about that. Why not? Because to people who didn't know and have the expectations, or what they wanted from an Astrobot platformer, you're giving them something really cool. So shout about why do we have to find that out after the fact by Googling? It's weird.
Raw.
I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
But
I loved Astrobot. Up for more of it. If it's a small amount, I'll take it, but kind of as much as you'll give me.
I'll take my
please.
Astrobot breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
So next up, a bit of a highlight for me. Little Devil Inside, which seems to be Souls meets Puppeteer meets Papercraft meets Monster Hunter, and something
runs the gamut, doesn't it?
Something that I had mentioned afterwards, which I kind of hadn't quite put two and two together with the crossover between the bloke fighting, the little guy fighting, and the old man. That whilst at the start you see the little guy deliver a monster to the old man, I'm wondering if the kind of the contrasts between him adventuring and then the old man being asleep, or him dropping the bomb and the old man dropping a poo, was
laughed so hard at that.
Was the fact that it was mentioned that perhaps the little fella is inside the old man doing those adventures. That basically all the wilderness and the monsters and stuff are him kind of shrinking down and adventuring inside the old man, and that's where the little devil inside comes in. And I was like, oh yeah, I could see that, but it looked phenomenal. Loved the art style. Thought the trailer was really well cut. They showed a lot of the game, and a lot of the different stuff that you could be up against. I would still freak out after if that big papercraft dragon came on the screen. Never mind the stylistic aspect. It looks tremendous. And this to me was a big selling point for the new machine. I saw that and was just like, I absolutely want to play that because it looks quirky, it looks weird, it looks scary. I don't know quite what it is, but that's enticing me because they've given me enough in this trailer to make me go, core.
Massive hit in House Smith as well. Like, me and Laura both sat forward on the sofa going, this is weird. I think it was I think I know when it was for Laura. It was the moment when the first dragon, the one that looks a bit like a Pookie Pookie from Monster Hunter, runs forward at the small character, just kind of going, and she just started laughing. And then when the guy was surfing a penguin down a hill, and then
yes, that was
I'd
really
lost
good.
her. And then Laura was done. That was it. She was dead on the floor. She's died from laughing at it. I don't know. Maybe it's like I got like a vibe of maybe it's he's might be writing a book about this adventure, possibly, or like he's reminiscing on old stuff. I didn't twig that the little guy was in the first shot with him. I didn't make that connection, but maybe I have to go back and watch it back. But you're probably right on that. He did a tiny poo in a video.
But at the same time as he was dropping a bomb, as he was dropping a bomb in like a cavern, which is what made me sort of muse when somebody said like, "Oh, little devil inside." Maybe all of this is going off within him. I love the bit where, I love anything where there's a huge sense of humour and it's scary and there's the full paint box between them because you never know what to expect. And there was one of my favourite memories of looking at this trailer was actually him was he like riding a dragon with like a girl on his shoulders and she got a sword and they were going up a hill towards something.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That just I was really floored by this, and it's nice to see that next gen isn't going to mean more photorealistic people who still don't look real. That it's actually going to bring these kind of visuals to the fore because this was just joyous. James?
I don't have much to to add, I absolutely adored this. I thought it was funny. I thought it was atmospheric. I thought it left me with questions of. I absolutely spotted the younger guy dragging a monster into the same room as the older guy. That's not to say that those aren't happening at different times. I heard a suggestion, maybe someone wondering if the old guy is remembering his adventures as a younger person. In there, I did spot a character that looked like a slightly younger version of the old guy, the white hair, but not quite the full moustache and beard that he had. So something's going on there. What you said about the young guy being inside the old absolutely makes sense as well. It left me with a question of exactly what's going on there, but the way it was cut together to contrast so in such a humorous way, I absolutely loved this.
But it also had like the goal to have all the bluster of those adventures and all the discovery with the mundanity of a quiet little village. Love that, and would often kind of pull you away from one and just put you into the other and allow itself to be quiet for 30 seconds before it threw you back.
So, of note for this game was kickstarted in 2015 and had a stretch goal for a Wii U version.
Cool.
Needless to say, it's a bit different now, and it ain't coming to Wii U.
I can't imagine.
Surely not come to Wii U. So, obviously, depending upon, I'm sure they are going to hopefully do right by the people who backed the Kickstarter, make sure they get a version coming to PC as well. Looks like it might be PS4 and PS5
I heard that.
with like timed console exclusivity. But this trailer was delightful and absolutely scary in ways where I feared for the protagonist, and left me with questions about what's going on, but desperately wanting to know more about it. And you can't ask for more from a trailer than that.
This is actually one of those games that I could instinctively decide that I'm buying and then mute the word on Twitter and just not bother like knowing anything else until it's released, because I think the joy of discovery of this will be great, and I'd rather have that than what up, it's your boy Bilbo, and here we are with all the bosses from Little Devil Inside, which is all about, I quite like the thought of figuring all this stuff out for myself, like opening a book, because there's that level of intrigue, and I've judged the book by its cover and by the opening pages, and they're ace.
Yeah.
Subscribe to Bilbo today.
Ring that bell. So from there we go on to NBA 2K21. Was it 20? With
21.
21.
Sweaty Pelican Man running
I've
through.
written Sweaty Pelican Man.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said for this.
I will say
How
one
dare
thing.
You?
So I am a
That's more than one.
basketball fan from the 1990s. I kept up with basketball. I used to buy, there was a fortnightly magazine called Slam Dunk
James,
in the UK.
to interject, is this when Channel 4 did their utterly magnificent basketball coverage? Or was it before that?
Yeah, and it's slowly got shifted to more and more pushed out of the way timings in the early hours of the morning and all sorts.
That was amazing. That's when I started supporting the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I was a Charlotte Hornets guy, which notably, so the story goes, the Hornets franchise moved, as American sports franchises often do, and rarely happens in the UK with Wimbledon moved, but Hornets moved from Charlotte to New Orleans and became the New Orleans Hornets. Then Charlotte set up Bobcats and then wanted the Hornets name back, so they transferred the Hornets name, and New Orleans Hornets became New Orleans Pelicans. That's as I understand it. I did not know this team existed. No. And apparently a bunch of people who are Americans and know basketball didn't know this team existed either. So this has come out of nowhere for anyone who is not absolutely diehard on top of knowing what basketball is. Apparently there are plenty of people in my position who consider themselves relatively au fait with the sport, who heard New Orleans Pelicans and went, what? What? But yeah, apparently they are a franchise what exists, and Zion Williamson is absolutely a top player in the NBA for sure. who sweats like a next-gen Adonis. The sweat tech on this. Unfortunately, the other point I have to make is I have never seen such a passive, anodized version of a backboard smash and the ring falling off. Whenever that happens in a match, it's like you see the whole backboard and the weighted kind of crane arm it's on creak and pull and come down, and then you hear the smash and the ring hits the floor, and it's the sound of it, the visceral experience of it. It grabs. It's notable. It doesn't happen often, and when it does, it's a powerful moment in the game. And we saw completely silently a ring just put on the ground. After what was the point in that? If you can't show me, if this is listed as PS5 pre-alpha NBA 2K21 footage, if your pre-alpha footage can't render some broken glass and a smash sound to get across the power of that happening, which is always, it's like surprising, it's a big moment, it's something that it should shock and hit you in some kind of way. And it was nothing. Why? Don't bother. Just have him walk away. That's powerful in and of itself. Don't show something and take away 90% of the impact of it.
Given how pay to win these games apparently are, they should have just had like a credit card just dropping from the top, just a giant credit card. Yeah, and you I don't know. Let's move on.
It's just weird to put that in and then completely strip away all of the various visual and auditory aspects that make that a significant thing to occur. Weird, very weird.
So let's move on from that terror to more terror, as the Sonic Adventure 2 Chows, as survival horror meets an awful song and a terrifying end moment with Bug Snacks.
Oh, that song's been stuck in my head.
Oh, yeah, same. I can
Friday, gotta get Bug Snacks Friday.
Now,
party in Straub.
I wish I'd had my phone out recording Laura during this trailer, because she was weeping with laughter at this trailer, because we saw the strawberry and like, oh, what is it, like I think I said like it was like a farming game, and I think what did you say it was, Laura?
Pikmin. I thought Pikmin. Yeah.
And then it grew eyes and went and that's when Laura fell apart, and that's when she started crying. I thought this was really funny. I really enjoyed this. I thought the little bug designs were really inventive. The little cinnamon roll snails were really funny, or the sub roll centipede was joyous. I don't quite understand why you eat a fruit and then it comes out of your hand, or you eat a burger and then you get a curly fry hand and then sausage hands.
The wiener hands joke was genuinely funny. I like that. But it did kind of put me in mind of the sort of thing that my my friend's little boy would watch on his phone when he was younger. Because like these really bad CG renders of people singing atrocious songs. And I saw all the complaints about this online, and I was terrified by what I saw. It was just like a huge nightmare. But I actually think there's kind of like a swing back on this, that the Bug Snacks will actually turn into doing Bug Snacks on Twitch, doing Bug Snacks on the YouTube, and it will almost become like a Five Nights at Freddy's type laugh-a-thon. And I don't know, there's a little bit, it seems like they're riffing on old school Rare a little bit, but not for me. Sure. But I can imagine there will be a lot of memes and chuckly people, and I don't know. I'm not really a fan of. I've never played Octodad. I've never fancied it, but don't know.
You can tell the Octodad guys have made it, because like the humour is like dead on what they do. And we, again, for our money, we really enjoyed Octodad. We played that. I've played Octodad 4-player. You each get to control a limb. And we put on the randomise button where every minute you change which limb you've got. It's a mess. It is a glorious, horrific mess, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The humour in this, for me, it gave me a mind of Axe Cop. If you're not familiar with Axe Cop, it was a cartoonist was playing with his younger brother. So he's like 28 and his younger brother's 5. And they just play with toys, like... You know, and he had a cop, and he found an axe, right? So I'm Axe Cop, right? And you're Dinosaur Soldier, right? You're Dinosaur Soldier, and it would be on the rules that if you ate like an avocado, you'd then become an avocado and have avocado powers, and you're now Avocado Soldier. And it was very much that sort of like, I've got fish blood on me, and now I've got fish powers. Like, it was that, and I really liked Axe Cop. It was fun, and it seemed to be a continuation of that. Go on. Yeah, this looks really silly. Like, I don't know what it's about. I don't know quite what the game itself is going to be. Do you just wander around consuming bug snacks, and there's a bug monster that comes together? There's an ice cream slug in it. That's good. Or very slow snails playing basketball. That was good too. Laura was just laughing. Literally laughing for the entire trailer. Yep. I lost her for about 3 minutes. I wish I'd taken video, because she doesn't laugh like that very often. Because I'm real. I'm just a terrible person to live with.
Sorry, I'm just sending a Bluetooth hug to Laura.
She just sat on the sofa doing a strange grin, like she knows.
She knows what I've just said.
Yeah. I poo-poo to you. I say poo-poo to you. This looks like a big silly laugh. Muppety goodness.
Yeah, I think so. So, Young Horses, the Octodad devs, have been working on this for, I guess, like 6 years or so. So it's been a long time coming. I thought they nailed the humour in this. The Liz having an Australian accent, don't know why, that was funny. A Tasmanian devil, I think, is what she is, but this is
leaning into like a Steve Irwin thing. That's what I presume.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. But this is, they take an idea of you are what you eat, and then work out how to make that funny and endearing. Certainly for me, and it sounds like for Laura and Paddy as well. Yeah, it's just fun, inventive. I'm honestly not sure whether I'll end up playing this, but I'm really, really glad it exists and just brought just a nice slice of joy to this proceeding that was not by any means in need of a slice of joy, but that song's been stuck in my head. The song was catchy, the humour's stuck. Just when you thought, you're not going to eat that, are you? Yep, of course you are. And then just a beat long enough before, pop, this hand turns into strawberries, and you just think, does that change the way that the character moves? Because you think about Octodad, the way that you actually interact with that game is part of the humour, part of the fun, part of, like, it's weird and wacky. And what happens if you have curly fries for legs? Do you bounce? You know, there's that kind of question comes to mind. It just opens up possibility in a way that I think it'd be really fun to see them play with. I thought it was really good fun. Definitely a rare influence I got as well. Yeah.
Paddy.
Bugs.
And nothing significant happened after this.
No, my stream skipped, so I think what's next, it was the Bethesda thing, right?
Now you see, I'm trying to piece in my head the point where Paddy sees Shu in his couch in his room, and then he goes, "There's something that's near and dear to my heart." And I just imagine like all of the blood draining from Paddy as he realised that hashtag CJ was right. But Paddy, can you tell me the story of your journey from when you saw Shu on the screen?
I'll be honest, I thought he might have been talking about Elden Ring.
Please tell us.
I really don't want to anymore. So CG Shu came on the screen. Computer-generated Shu, and he said about a game that was very important to him, and we all know he has history with Demon Souls and the Souls franchise, and I thought this could be our first look at Elden Ring, you know, and the thing started playing, and me and Laura were watching, and there were mountains, and the music stopped, but then, of course, there we go, and men walking, that I thought, oh, the men are walking, that's interesting, and it must have been a while, because I didn't make the connection until, dum, and the man flying, and then I was like, oh no, and I could feel you. I think I looked out of my window and I saw a star ascend into the sky, and it burst into, the firework burst into the shape of a cup of coffee.
You could hear a vague version of All Over the World from the Xanadu soundtrack. All over the world.
Well, it only took you 7 years.
It wasn't 7 years.
Been a while.
Right, there's a thing that I can put on my Twitter timeline that something great has happened. I can put on that I'm ill. I won't see or hear anything from Paddy, but I can speak. Somebody else can ask me about this, and somehow it's as if a bot has kicked in, or like he can be in the middle of the supermarket, or like playing with his daughter, and like time will pause, and the Grim Reaper will just go, "He's on his BS again." and you will appear
Paddy
out of
sense kicks in.
nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I am still eternally curious as to how the blood drained from your body on this. Because my phone suddenly started going, and this was in time to the dum dum, and then all of a sudden I was hearing like, and like instead of the dum dum coming out of the telly, I'm just suddenly thrown because my phone on the side of my couch is going.
I actually had we had a no phones, no Twitter rule for this, so I wanted to get on, but I figured I'd let you watch as well, because if any time I wasn't looking at the screen, I'd be missing stuff.
But I'd also prepared a statement which I was quite happy about for afterwards.
No, I'm genuinely happy. Like, I think it's a good thing. I refused to believe it until I saw it. I do not comment on rumour or speculation. I only deal with what I see in front of me.
I will state that I knew this was here, and I knew this was coming, and have for a while. So, but even on the day, let's look back to.
You've intimated as such for years, though.
No.
This felt no different to any of the other times. It's definitely happening. There've
been stuff from reputable folks on like Reddit and Reset Area and stuff like for years saying that it'd been ready to show, but they pulled it at the last minute. That it's definitely a thing. But that was where I was like, oh, that person's kind of got a bit of cachet, and people are seemingly all right with that, and the mods have to verify them on or verify what's cracking off on one or the other. And then a while ago, I found out that it was a thing. But yes, even on the day, there was Global Mega Dude was just like, I hope it'll all be good. I hope it will all be good news tomorrow night, but I'm hesitant too. Demon's Souls remake in the show tomorrow, CJ? Yes or no?
That is actually what he sounds like. I've met Global Mega Dude. He actually does sound like that. It's spot on.
To which I replied, yes. And Global Mega Dude says, I believe in you. And then out of nowhere, I don't think I'd heard anything from you all day. All of a sudden, you're there with a wrestling gif and no chance, and a starry potato man in a pinstripe. No, it's Starry Potato Man. It's his brother. And no chance was on my screen. Literally, I hadn't heard anything from you all day, and within seconds, it's almost as if you were torn from what you were doing. But
well,
anyway.
It goes to the top of the screen, doesn't it? Because everyone's talking and you're having a conversation, and it naturally is more chance to get seen by my eyeballs.
It's
I've actually got an alert set up for CJ is right. And I just like, oh, he's at it again. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, Laura, hold the baby, just like throwing her across the house.
What's up? CJ's wrong again. I need to fix it.
But I'm crafting my daughter. Just like throwing your PlayStation cushions on the ground so she'll bounce. Now,
don't joke, because we have laid cushions on the ground in front of the sofa just in case sometimes.
There we go. I clicked onto this as soon as I saw him, and then when he said something near and dear to my heart, I was like, this is happening. And then as soon as I saw the greenery, I was like, yeah, this is here. And
was it not real though until the dum dum and the hanging man?
The hanging man kind of I was already there. I already kind of knew we were in the zone at that point. But that kind of I think maybe if anything the even though it's a version of what's on the original trailer, kind of the snowy mountain sort of threw me to the side a little bit, and then I went, oh, cut content, okay. And then sort of as the trailer played out, it was a case of drinking it in and figuring it out, and then going like, oh, that's the man-eaters, and then realising it's the bit just after you've done the doll fight.
Fool's Idol.
Yeah. And looking at the level of design work and the reinterpretations, shall we say, coming back to conversations that we've had in the past, where modern, I mean, they can do whatever they want with it, but we've had conversations recently where it's been everything seems to be going ray traced and going very realistically rendered and lit, but sometimes, and this is definitely the case with Demon's Souls, that there's a very definite atmosphere to it, and there's a very definite look. And part of me is still kind of reticent that might not be there in this new one. I'm not... At this point, I'm not super taken with some of the redesigns of like the Dragon Guard. I love the kind of the building and all that kind of stuff, but the Flame Lurker...
Flame Lurker was what I was going to pose to you. That was the one that made me top my eyebrow.
Flame Lurker has an amazing original design, and if you see that up close even now, it's the sort of thing that would stand out more if rendered within modern day tech, and it looked a little more generic.
Like a Diablo villain.
Yeah, it just looked a little bit more sort of
normal,
regular.
And even a mid-boss.
And even some of the... I mean, don't get me wrong, throughout all this, they can do what they want with it. I'm delighted that there's that much passion and that there's that much finesse and talent involved. I am curious as to whether they've had conversations with From Software throughout this, or if From's just gone like, yeah, do what you want. You did a good job with Shadow of the Colossus, although I believe... within the design stuff, I think Joshua Garrity had issues between... I don't know if it was the first time it was seen, but between losing that kind of hue. But with some of the press shots afterwards, they were wonderfully crisp and they were superbly designed. But I look at Bolitarian Palace and I don't get the same level of awe or even like scope that when you see Bolitarian Palace from a distance, like when you're starting sort of the level, it seems so far back with like the hue and the distance and like that kind of foggy look to it. And even when you go down inside to the second level, you know, like that oppressive kind of yellow, just piss-stained, like foggy horribleness of the second level. Even with the seeing the Tower Knight there, like there's on the original, it seems like there's a real distance between the character in the foreground and everything in the background. And on the remaster, you saw like the vines and the flowers on the walls. You saw the brickwork and all that sort of stuff. But it seemed very much like I didn't get that sense of scale. And
yeah,
I'm super excited for it. I've been excited for it for a long time. There's a lot that they can do. There's lots of rumours swirling around as to whether they're going to do the Sixth Archstone and the werewolves and all of that stuff, as to whether they've had free reign to do whatever they want, or even like if From's artists have sort of chimed in with new versions of the old stuff. I hope they keep the same voice acting as the original, because some of the delivery on the original voice acting is tremendous. Still tremendous, and holds so much character, like the Monumental telling that story, or like the let's face it, the underlying tone of Demon's Souls is that the world is absolutely fucked, other than for the people of Scotland.
Do come back alive! I need your business.
Yeah, or even like there's so many Scottish people in there who are giving you weapons or looking after your things. But I am super excited about this, and I think this is a system seller. I wonder if it's going to be a launch title or if it's going to do a traditional From and they wait till March, and maybe that's the point where we get a black console bundle or a blood red PS5 or something along those lines, because they never did that with Bloodborne, and maybe they could do that with Bloodborne this gen. You don't know. It depends when they're going to allegedly kind of pitch that stuff or put it in the schedule. But I am desperately excited about this.
I think you bob on with the system seller thing, because this is a lot of people's like white whale. A lot of Souls people's white whale, because a lot of people got. I mean, Dark Souls only got big, really, sort of in the Xbox 360, PS3. That's when it got huge, wasn't it? I mean, it started taking over the world. A lot of people have never played Demon Souls.
Varty was saying like 75% of people that love Souls games have not played Demon Souls. So
where did he read that from?
Hey. But I think it's interesting, and we've had discussions before that the likes of World Tendency was, really confusing back in the day, but it was ambitious. But at a time that we're in where games as a service is a thing, to have, and From's difficulty has been brought up many, many times, but even beyond doing like Valentine's Day events or like Christmas Day events and the world sort of changing, like having the ability to go, right, the world tendency's going to white now. So if somebody's stuck on a level, they know that the level's going to be a little bit easier. Or if somebody wants to go back to and grind like Boletarian Palace, that's going to black. But these things are potential drops at this point. And I think that wasn't a thing back then, because all of that online stuff, even with regards to invasions and stuff, they couldn't even explain that themselves when they were trying to pitch Demon Souls. But I think there's so much potential here. There's clearly a world of talent involved in it. Some people are saying that this fractured mode that Sony have now kind of scrubbed from the descriptions might be the original kind of permadeath mode that was an option in the original, but some might be saying that it kind of gives it the original graphics look, that it gives it that hue back,
that soup look.
Yeah, and I'd be super excited to have the option of doing that. So yeah, sorry, I'm super rambling, but I'm very excited. Apparently, there's going to be sort of a graphics and a sort of frame rate mode are involved in it. But 100% a system seller. Like seriously, Sony, blow all of your money on this. And you look at like that first shot of where you not far from where the game starts looks super artistically detailed. I'm not sure I like it more than the blandness, and I don't mean that in a bad way, like the smoothed walls of kind of the lead up to Boletarian Palace. The Asylum boss looks unusual.
Looks too dark, the picture they've shown. Like, you can't see where you are. It's just a big man in the darkness, isn't it?
But I'm curious to see what they do with it. I'm by no means like Demon Souls, but I'm excited, but a little bit nervousness within that. But that's not taken away from how excited I am, and also to see that there are loads of people who are super, super hyped about this, who have never played Demon Souls, and I can't wait to see those people find out what Demon Souls is. And also to see the ambition of building upon something which came from a company who were like so not where they are now in terms of money, in terms of like they're standing in the industry, they're standing with fandom. They were nowhere near that, and this was this blistering little anomaly that still has the most phenomenal design and an unmatched atmosphere. Yes, James.
I think the interesting thing for me is not only were From Software not then who they are now, Sony PlayStation didn't know what they had then.
100%.
No.
And they absolutely do now. And I've never realised truly what it's like to be unaware that you're so much part of a community that something seems patently obvious to you, and yet people who clearly know as much, if not far, far more than me about video games in general, just didn't see here. The moment Shuhei Yoshida, despite the fact he's the new head of Independent Developer Initiative, and you would have maybe thought, oh, well, this is going to be some indie game, as soon as he said near and dear to him, done. I've literally written in my notes, introduces something near and dear to him, this is motherfucking Demon's Souls in it. It's not a question. No, like, Paddy, you asked, when did you know for sure? When he said near and dear to me, because he has spoken about the fact that he didn't know what Demon's Souls was. He's spoken about the fact that Sony dropped the ball with this series, and that he has gone on to find and adore and love this game in a way that makes him regret the fact they didn't do better by Demon's Souls. They didn't lock this down in a way that allowed or meant From had to go off to Bandai Namco and spin off a different series in order to continue the lineage of this. As soon as he said that, I was like, done, it's Demon's Souls, sit back, let me just see what this is. And it really is a remake. Like, from the moment I saw that they were redoing the sequences from the opening video, like, through the order, it's like, oh, they want people to know this is a remake, because they're showing you something where you have very fixed expectations of how this should look. And it's not. It's different.
I think in that regard, just to butt in, if I may, that they're not appealing to the people who played it originally, specifically. They're appealing to the people who love Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Yeah. And they're giving them that look and that feeling, and of those people knowing of the legacy of their favourite series and something that they haven't seen, but also the amount of people on my timeline whose breath was taken away, who were genuinely cheering about this, who had no reference and with it. That gave me joy, and that's why I can lean into. That's why they're going for this crisp look. That's why they're going for something new. And you know, all credit to them, full speed to them, because that was the reaction.
I think it would be a lot easier to take if this was a remake like Dark Souls was remastered, or it was a remaster like Dark Souls was remastered, where it's one of those, okay, make some changes, because if we don't like them, we can always just go back to the original version of the game that's there. With Demon's Souls, it's hard to. Paddy, you're doing a fantastic job of doing a Soul Level 1 playthrough of Demon's Souls right now. It's not this, like, not only playing it as Soul Level 1, but it's not the same game it was when we played it originally.
James, there's
when
no
it originally
summons.
Came out.
James, there's no summons.
Exactly.
I have to play by myself. It's torture.
Paddy, there's no summons. Do you remember one of the first times? Well, the first time we played the game together?
The first time, 4-1.
Yeah.
With no voice chat, pointing and gesturing at where the things were. Yeah. And I was like waving and bowing, like, oh, cheers.
The original version of gestures as your only expression, your only communication, absolutely.
But I do remember in that, like, the first time in my own game that I was invaded, it genuinely felt like somebody kicked the back door in. Yeah. And because I'd never experienced that in a game before. And it terrified me.
I was invaded exactly once and then suicided every single time after that. I didn't want that again.
There's a little nuance, like the thing that I'd like to see them keep, and it's the tiniest little thing, is you not making any noise when you're hollowed. Yes. That's one of my favourite things in this game.
Such a cool touch, the difference on the floor in the why am I forgetting the name of the hub?
The Nexus.
Nexus, thank you.
Oh god, the Nexus. That's something I
you're
genuinely.
A human, you go boom, boom, boom on the floor.
Yeah, it's really surreal, and I can't wait to see the Nexus, and I can't wait for them to show me a trailer where it kind of, again, I've mused at this for years, but it just like cuts to black, and it maybe sort of zooms like up to the Nexus and does that original reveal, and then just goes quiet, and then just goes, "Dost thou seek soul power?"
I'm kind of I get why they went with the video they did, but I'm kind of surprised they didn't do the cut to black, "Does thou seek soul power," and then just pan to that landscape, because that might have been the only way this could have kicked me in the face harder than it did. It's difficult, because you can't just say to people, "Well, go back and play the original if you love the original." And a bit in the way where with Shadow of the Colossus is like, yeah, the PS2 version's absolutely still there, but the PS3, you have to get the PS3 out to play on that. That version can't easily be ported to PC or updated onto new consoles. So if you have a PS4 and that's what you have and you want to play Shadow of the Colossus, you only have the remake to play. And I absolutely, like Josh tweeted about this to say he absolutely had a problem with the look of Shadow of the Colossus because it would change the way the characters animated, and the animation was so much like, it was in some ways you could say, oh well, it's a hallmark of PS2 or it's janky in certain ways, etc. But that was part of the experience for him, and it's part of the character. And with Demon Souls, we can point at stuff that's a bit like, it's a bit janky and stuff, but it's part of the overall experience, and that some of it will get lost. Like, I'm stating it now, stuff gets lost because Bluepoint have every right, and they should, if they're doing a remake, and they are, they should take it in a direction that they want. They get to put themselves into this game every bit as much as From put themselves into the original. And so I have to not only expect, but I have to want them to be able to make changes, and I do, because Demon Souls isn't great because it's exactly what it was. It was doing stuff that has gone on to prove through Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro even, and all the other offshoots that aren't From. Games that don't scream Souls-like can take aspects of Souls games and blend that in ways, and it's not all mechanics, it's not all atmosphere, it's not all storytelling, it's little things, and that I want Bluepoint to bring their own flavour to this. And so yeah, the art does look different, and absolutely Diablo, good touchstone for me. Like, there's that I associate it as much with Torchlight as Diablo, but the kind of slightly cartoony look to, stylized look to, particularly Flame Lurker, I noticed it. Absolutely agree with you guys. It is a different look. It's not going to be the original Demon's Souls, but let's absolutely see what Bluepoint have got to say about this, because they're doing it. Like, they tweeted, we're doing the big one. Like, that tells you their studio, they care about this, they wanted this. People, like I mentioned, I realised how much I'm part of a community, because I've, as I mentioned, watched 5 different watchovers of this. Not a single person, until it got to like almost Tower Knight, realised it was Demon Souls. Like, they saw the
these were people that
near
had
and dear to him,
that had no resonance with the original, I presume.
They just, like, people who know fine well that Demon Souls has been rumoured, who before this show talked about, wonder if we'll see the Demon Souls remake that Bluepoint are rumoured to be doing, and yet got halfway through this reveal before they realised it was Demon Souls. That blew my mind.
Christ.
They know this is coming, they know it's a game people love, people who have played Demon Souls but didn't have the frame of reference I didn't, we didn't, loads of people in the community would, that when Shuhei Yoshida says something near and dear to him, expect Demon Souls, because he has that history that we have with it, and a specific history where he feels like he and Sony dropped the ball on it. So when he says near and dear to him, he's talking about this. Doesn't matter if he's had independent development, doesn't matter if you know that he has other passions, is this. And like, I've heard other people saying, oh yeah, I know lots of people want Demon Souls, but I really want Bluepoint to do Metal Gear Solid again. Yes, it's had a remake, but let's do Metal Gear Solid. I get that. I get it. I really, really do. I get that, and I love Metal Gear Solid. It's my favourite of the series. I absolutely adore it, even though I came to it late. But there's a reason Demon Souls is the one that people keep coming back to with this, with the rumours, with the hopes, with the wants, and it absolutely is. A lot of people didn't come to the Souls series, didn't come to Dark Souls until it was on current gen, Xbox One, PlayStation 4. A lot of people via Bloodborne. A lot of people probably now via
PS
Sekiro.
Plus. Bloodborne was the point where people got to confront a game that they were sure wasn't for them, and just went, oh, like a huge amount of people.
And so those people may have had access to Dark Souls on PC or then the remaster, but they never, unless they had a PS3 in the cupboard they could dust off, they never had a chance with Demon Souls. And because it had this long, weird rollout where it was staggered across different regions, It was different publishers. Getting hold of a physical copy wasn't always necessarily straightforward.
Yeah, I imported
people
from,
imported
from,
exactly.
I imported from the States and was worried that I was going to get charged like import tax, and thankfully didn't.
Yeah,
But
so yeah, to me it was just like, from moment one, before any footage started, obviously this was Demon Souls. Saw the landscape, heard some people say, "Oh, is it going to be an Elder Scrolls?" Stop talking. You're already wrong. And of course it's ridiculous. I know this, so therefore it seems obvious. And someone who doesn't know it, it doesn't seem obvious to them. Even when the music started, I was like, you must know now, right? That is like it. It's weird, but yeah, it was just. I'm so intrigued, and this absolutely won't ruin my memory of Demon Souls. If I end up playing it and I don't like what they've done, it doesn't suit me, I'll still respect the fact that Bluepoint loved this game, wanted to do this game. Sony are going back to something that they let languish and regretted, and are now getting a chance to redo it. In all honesty, I hope in some ways that FromSoft and Miyazaki just kind of said, "You have our blessing, go forth." Just go and do it, because try something different. It might play differently in a way that doesn't work for many fans, but I'm so glad we're getting this. I've wanted it for a long time, as I know you have, CJ, and Paddy. Well, you're here as well.
Do you know something? Just to interject as well, we were talking about the SSD and like the kind of the boosh that was there in Ratchet and Clank of jumping between worlds. Can you imagine going to the Archstone and then like boom, boom, like you're straight in?
Yeah.
That's pretty saucy. And there's folks have mentioned about quality of life improvements that they can do across the board. That maybe they'll have the same sort of rolling that's in like Dark Souls 3 and that kind of stuff. The one thing when we were talking about Flame Lurker earlier is that one of the joys and huge dichotomies of that level is you can be wandering through it, that it's really oppressive. You've got all those minor creatures and like the laughing guys with their hats and stuff. But then you get further into that level and you are essentially confronted by a flying teddy bear that wants to pin you down and hug you, but also stab you to death. And those things are completely and utterly cute. And I wonder what the redesign of those is going to be.
And also made of house.
Yeah.
As is documented very recently on our YouTube channel, in fact.
Yeah.
Christ. And so I finished Dark Souls 1 level 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they announced the remaster not long after I'd finished. I've nearly finished One Bro on Demon Souls. They've announced the remaster. Is there anything you would like remastered you'd like me to play?
Right, I will throw this into the mix, right?
Because I'll play it and I'll get a remaster announced. I don't mind. Like,
when Dark Souls Remastered came out, there was talk that Bandai were originally talking about doing a remake, and they decided not to put money in, like to do something that was fairly bare bones, and that's what we got. I think that if this sells as well as it's going to do, and Bamco smell money, that's when they will announce Dark Souls Remake, and that's where they will kind of throw a lot of money into somebody like remaking it, like a huge amount of money.
But who? Because at that point,
100%, I'm with you.
Won't necessarily be Bluepoint, and I don't really want From to go back to it. They've said their piece on Dark Souls.
But you see what I mean? You can you kind of look at Bamco under the microscope with that, and you just go, yeah. So it could be interesting in that regard.
Yeah, we'll see.
Paddy,
yeah.
Have you any hopes and dreams or kind of viewpoints as to whether this should stand alone, or the things that you'd like it to, or your favourite bits of Demon Souls that you'd like to stay the same, or you wouldn't mind changing, or any of that sort of stuff?
There's been a lot of talk about like the Sixth Archstone stuff, and like for my money, I would prefer, and they can do what they want with it, obviously, if they kept it structurally as is. Like, I think that's the game. I think the fact that there's the mystery of the one that you can't go to because it's been taken over completely. I like that that's there. I like that it's a thing. And I know that people data mined out like a version that was planned and was scrapped, but I kind of like it being this mystery that you don't quite get the answers to. Or you don't even really get the question almost. It's just there's a land of giants, it all went to hell, you can't go there now. And that's all you get. That's all you get. You don't get anything else that links to it, and that's brilliant. Like it's there. I don't really want to like posit mechanical changes and things because I'm as you know I'm very very recently nearly done with my One Bro at the moment. And I've had a real good time. I think maybe they could rebalance some stuff because the early half of that game you can break super quickly.
Yeah. With
the Dragon Longsword particularly with minimal effort. You can have that thing to +5, like legitimately, with none of the weapon duping stuff, which they're taking out. Like you can have that to a +5 very, very quickly, and that can be the weapon that takes you through the whole game, as it has for me.
Varty was saying like the royal magic stuff is kind of quite heavily weighted in that regard. But then again, that's.
But what I don't want to see is.
Traditional.
Yeah, like artificial boss numbers bloated. I'd like to keep it as is. I don't want current Souls design philosophies of make it harder.
You just string out the health bar until it no longer becomes a fight.
Put a 0 on the end. That'll do. Health points. Just another 0. I'd like to keep it fairly as it is, but I appreciate that there are some balance issues that could be sorted out. I think so that the game just. It plays more like you can't break it within 3 levels. I'd like it to be if they're going to go all in like this. I'd like it just to be tweaked and balanced, just so it's a bit more steady. Because I was able to, like you say, my path through the game was pretty much straight to Dragon God was the first one that I did, the first bit, and that was like straight through that level. Get the big sword through Dragon God, and then the sword that I got out of that level took me through. All of the 5th Archstone, all of the 3rd Archstone, all of the 4th, like in that order, boom, 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 relatively easily. I know there are a few points where I got stuck, but relatively easily. I maybe you shouldn't be able to waltz through the game that quickly. Maybe it should be harder than that. Maybe it should be more.
But if you cast your mind back to when this game was first released, the people that were talking about it and were sharing it amongst themselves were saying like. This is super tough, and whilst Souls games and Sekiro and stuff have really taken that on exponentially, people forget the way that this game was under the lens that this game was viewed, and the way that people spoke about it at the time.
Let me frame it a different way. I think we've all got the experience now. We've all played.
That's the problem.
I think
I think to walk back, if I was to play Demon's Souls normally, I know that the level 1 thing is something, but I have skipped through this faster than any other run I've done of this game.
But it's a relatively short game as well.
Yeah, I've trounced through it. It's been great.
This is the thing, though. There's expectations from people who are familiar with the series, and I don't think they'd accept. Demon's Souls. I don't even mean that as a criticism of those people or of Demon's Souls at all, but I think this is why it's a good idea that it is a remake, that it's a reimagining. And I'd be interested to see. I know James was saying about Bluepoint doing it on their own. I'd be interested to see if there are conversations that have gone on with regards to the things that they couldn't do or the things that they regretted, or because at that time you were more or less putting things on a disc and not patching it, and so I mean even down to stuff like the 6th Archstone. If Miyazaki had a conversation saying this is what we wanted to do, this is how it was tying in, this is what we were doing, and maybe that folding into something more surprising or like different. I mean, where we see the Dragon God there, that doesn't really tie in massively to what we saw in the original.
It looked like a Castlevania level, didn't it? In a way, like I got Castlevania out of that with the moon and the big castles. Like,
so that's where I'm kind of thinking, if there is a conversation, what would not only what didn't they have time to do, not only what would they have done, but what would they do now, and even if that dialogue is there, so Bluepoint don't come up to to a place where they're going, bit stuck. So they've got access to Miyazaki in that regard, and I'd be very, very happy at that, because there was no From Software logo anywhere in that trailer.
No, and that I think that was deliberate. That's not to say they're not involved somewhere, but they don't want people to overestimate the degree to which FromSoft are involved here, I think. I think it's interesting as well, because this is a game that was made before the series as we now consider it existed, being remade after. This is not Shadow of the Colossus, where it's a one-off game being remade. This is now a series, and there's a lot of knowledge and iteration and learning and hindsight can go into now remaking this game. And it's fascinating. It's so difficult for them as well, because you're absolutely right. If I go and play Demon's Souls now, that's, if I'm taking my time, a 20-hour experience, just because I know where to go to get the weapons or the whatever it is I need for my build, and I can just, and I know how to play it.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing knowledge that I've not got, not just from playing Demon's Souls, but from playing the series. So whether it's people who did play Demon's Souls originally and are going back to or going to the remake with that experience, or whether it's people who've played the rest of the Dark Souls games or Bloodborne going into this with those games experience, and also for brand new players, you have to consider all of those people going to this game. Whereas the original game, no one knew what this was. No one really had a leg up over anyone else. And so how do you make it a full rounded experience that's going to surprise and delight in the way that Demon's Souls did originally? And I don't know. I don't envy them doing that. Like, obviously I'm envious of them getting the chance to do this, and I'm really excited. But it's a tough needle to thread. It really is. Because you don't want everyone who's played Souls before to blitz through it in 20 hours and think, oh, well, is that really all that was?
You
need them to come away fulfilled,
visually and gameplay wise, and I think they've got to do their own. I'm excited to see what they do, but as Paddy sort of amplified, and I think this is a huge system seller, and I'm confident in the way that Sony handled Bloodborne's promotion, which was perfect, that they will really, really nail this, because finally, and it's nice to get the underdog story, to get its sort of final little sort of act, that this game has had a long way of reaching an audience, and that audience fought for it, and to get something that's highly promoted, that's a system seller, that looks this great, warms my heart. It really does.
Yeah. Demon's Souls Hot Wing Challenge?
Please no. It's not. It's not banned.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. No.
I'll give you this one for free. #CJ was right.
Oh, bless you. Love you lots.
You're a humble gent.
And that's the end of our Part 2 coverage for the Sony PlayStation 5 E3 Spectacular. Join us on the next episode for the final part, Part 3. It's a heifer. Cheers, bye!